Hello, everyone. I'm Tom Bickle, and I'm here with my co host, Matt Nisanoff. Thank you for joining us for another episode of PolitiPod Live. Welcome to our second episode as we discuss politics and current events. Matt, would you like to start us off with our first topic?
Let's do. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully, joining us again and making our little Wednesday visits a regular part of your day. We're going to start off with international news and talk a little bit more about actually what we haven't talked about yet, which is Israel and Gaza. Something light to start off with. There's actually some news in that you may have heard there's apparently an agreement between Trump and Netanyahu to bring about a peace plan. There's a 20-point peace plan, and they have agreed that this is the thing to pursue now. There's a thing that Trump does about talking with one side in order to resolve conflicts. He speaks with Putin about how to resolve Ukraine. He speaks to Netanyahu about how to resolve Gaza. It'd be nice if maybe some other people were involved, perhaps even the actual people who are both involved, both sides that are involved. But we get what we get with Donald. And here we are in Gaza with a 20-point plan. And so where does that take us? I don't know, really. I don't think that there's much of an. I don't know that there's. He's trying to make. Trump is trying to act as if he's a great peacemaker of our times. He claims that he's solved a dozen different conflicts, and he's a man of peace. And that's why there are troops in American cities. There's National Guard and ICE troops marching into our local cities because he's a man of great peace. And we'll see if there can be maybe a 20, let's make it a 2-point plan and just get ICE and the National Guard out of our cities. There's an idea. I'll float that out there and see if, that could get you a Nobel Peace Prize if you did something like that. But with back to Israel and Gaza, there's the flotilla that was sent there, something like 44 or people from 44 different nations were part of the flotilla. Flotilla was diverted. There's a lot of concern about where these people are, what's happening to them. The Israeli government says, oh, don't worry, they're safe. Okay, well, let's hope so. All they were doing was taking a flotilla with humanitarian aid to help those in Gaza. And, so hopefully there's nothing that's happened to them that's severe. That they're just, what would be better would to let them go through. Check the boat, see if there's anything that's not humanitarian. If there is, take it out. Let them go on their way and deliver the humanitarian things. We don't know what the upshot of that is yet, but all of that adds into the issue. And it's actually, I'm Jewish, and when I was raised in the 70s and 80s, we looked at Israel as a very positive thing. This was in the days of the, raid on Entebbe and some very things that were done that were considered, frankly, pretty miraculous for a young nation to be able to even try, much less actually achieve. So there was a lot of pride about that. And then at some point, and I think that can be traced directly to the election of Netanyahu, but after that, there's not so much to be proud about. And that's really heartbreaking. It's very difficult I wouldn't want to do something that showed support for Netanyahu. I just wouldn't want to do that. And at the same time, the violence that's going on in Gaza now, the violence that led to the violence there now, all of it is very, it's just heartbreaking to see.
Absolutely. There's no winners here. No, it's terrible. You cover a lot of ground out of the gate, Matt. So let me catch up and get a word in edgewise on some of these. Yeah, Gaza. I feel like you put your finger on it when you said Trump always goes in with one side, and obviously it's the better to connive against the third party if you do that. And I don't know what saved Ukraine from that so much as maybe having allies in Europe and things like that, a strong counterweight that he couldn't just ignore. Maybe that made the difference. But I thought he was going to go in there and, like you said, shut it down in a day by going, hey, Ukraine, time's up. We're shutting off. And by the way, thanks for getting me impeached, which wasn't Ukraine's fault. But anyway, so that's where my brain goes on that. Netanyahu, yeah. Having a politician get a hold of your country and bring it low and make you ashamed instead of proud in the span of several years, I just can't relate. I can't imagine what that's like. So you have my sympathy there. Yeah. And I don't know, had a conversation recently about Palestine and Israel, and it's just like a lava lamp. Nothing ever settles. Nothing is ever settled. If something good starts to happen over here, something else, the ass falls out of it over there or catches on fire at some third location, and it just refuses. It refuses to be solved.
And for hundreds of years, I mean, they know that the Americans are temporary on the larger
Scale.
larger picture.
Yeah.
The British came and went, and the Americans have come and they'll go, and who's next will come and go. So the combatants, if you will, don't have to resolve it because of somebody coming from the outside, because they know that they'll stay or they'll go or they're out of here, whenever.
Right.
And that makes it so that it's really up to the combatants if they're willing to come to a resolution. And there's certainly not anytime soon. Yet for a couple of decades now, there's been the idea of a two-state solution. And honestly, I'm having some real trouble with that idea now too. At one time, I definitely believed it and thought, oh, well, there's the solution. That will mean that everybody will have something and everybody will be able to be. They may not get everything they want, but they'll each have their own state, and each party can do something with that. But with all the things that have happened most recently, I don't know that will be. I don't know that will do it. I don't know. It's not two sides who are arguing the same thing. It's not two sides saying, if we just had a homeland, we can be happy and we can make things happen. What's being said is, it seems, one side saying, well, we're not going to give up anything that we have, and the other side saying, well, we want to drive all of the rest of you in, and we want to drive the Jews into the sea. And when I hear that, I think, oh, that means kill them, because between the river, the Jordan River, and the sea, the Mediterranean Sea, if you drive somebody from those areas, there's nowhere to go but the Mediterranean.
Right.
My understanding is there's an interpretation out there that says, oh, well, that doesn't mean kill them. It just means force them out. Okay, well, that is certainly not killing things. That's great. But not killing people is great. But that whole idea of what is it that will actually make both sides happy? And what can be done that would actually resolve whatever the real issue is. Well, I wish I could say I had something to offer. I wish I had an idea or at least something to say, well, here's what I would like to say, but I don't. I don't have any idea, and I don't know what would make both sides happy. And I don't think it would come in 20 parts. I will say that.
Well, let me ask you this: do you think it's a good thing that Gaza has been Palestine has been recognized by France and the UK and these other and now what was it, Australia? uh, do you think that's a good thing? Do you think that I read somewhere, for example, that some people thought that nothing was really extracted in return for that recognition? It was sort of freely given, and there were no, for example, like I forget the word, but an agreement to do this and that or thus and so, to hold certain to anyway. There were certain negotiations or acquisitions that weren't gleaned from that, and some people thought that was a loss.
Yeah, that I don't know that that's the case. I know that somebody said that, but I don't think that it's necessarily the case. I think that's the reaction those countries are having to trying to move forward some sort of deal, and Israel's not agreeing to it. Not that they shouldn't, but they're not going to. And I think that these are the countries, this is their reaction. If you're not going to budge, then we have to do something. And the next thing is recognize the Palestinian state. And also, it's not just Gaza. Gaza and the West Bank have been given to the Palestinians for how many years since that agreement? So those two areas, the catch is there's the political party difference. The Palestinian Authority was removed from Gaza or chased out of Gaza by Hamas. So Hamas won the election to represent Gaza because they ran off the competition. So, but they ran off and they moved to the West Bank. So the Palestinian Authority is in the West Bank and Hamas is in Gaza. And so there's not a unity within the two parts. So there's another difficulty to figure out how to address. Can they somehow act as one? Do they have to? How do they function with each other? And it doesn't seem that's functioning either. So hard to say.
Yeah, well said.
Okay.
So you think they're going? What do you think? How far do you think that flotilla is going to get?
Well, as I say, they've already sort of stopped it and steered it into another direction and apparently have taken the people with them or to another location. I don't think they've announced where they are. They in this case is the Israeli government. They said something about everybody's okay, everybody's concerned because one of the people is Greta Thunberg, so someone who is a very high-profile person. So people are saying it as, "Oh, what's happening with Greta?" But they mean the whole group, or hopefully they do. But so the Israelis are apparently saying, "Oh, they're safe," and that's all they'll say. They won't say much more right now until they, I guess, actually release them, hopefully soon. But I don't have any other information on that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, so as easy as that is to resolve, I think we have a few more minutes to solve another problem. And is, let's see here. What's the next thing we can take a few minutes on? Oh, this is going back to the discussion we had last week on immigration policy in the U.S. And ICE troops and National Guard troops and all these military forces that are being directed inside our country as part of Trump's war on America. We have the latest, which is almost a Keystone Cop version of ICE. And that is, you may have seen the video on TV or on YouTube or somewhere where there's a young man doing food delivery on his bicycle, and he rides up and he says, F Trump. And there's about, I don't know, 30 or 40 of these police or ICE or whoever it was. And he rides right up to him, says it, starts riding away. And actually, as he starts riding away, he drops his wallet. So he has to take a second to to jump off his bike to grab his wallet. And when he does, one of the officers screams, get him. And about 12 or 13 of the officers start bolting after this kid on this bike. And he zooms away. He's able to cut across the road and behind another bicyclist. And while there's 12 of them, or however many there were, he's able to get around the corner and shoot up the street and escape. I think we might have that video as well. Is that
we do, Matt. Absolutely. Give me just a moment here, but I'm afraid there might be a technical difficulty. All right. Well, as you can tell, the orientation was somehow wrong there, but I think you get the idea. Go ahead.
Yeah, do look at the private chat if you get a second, Tom. Yeah, the orientation, I'm not certain how we can, if it's something we can adjust, but if you see something down there, that's possible. Yeah, but I mean, it brings up that whole concept of the Keystone Cops to me. All we needed was the right music under it, and it becomes a silent movie version of the Keystone Cops, blindly chasing after a guy, bumping into each other, knocking each other over, jump over the wheel, whatever it is.
Right. They come so close.
Exactly. And you can hear what they're saying.
And they're bumbling and they're stumbling. And one or two of them, I think, almost went down. I'm not sure if anybody actually face planted, but it was pretty close. And they almost had him, but he got away. I've heard it pointed out, and I tend to agree that it's very funny. The first thing that came to my mind was the Benny Hill music, yakety sax. And it's hilarious. But on the other hand, if they'd have caught this guy, they would have injured him for no reason, for no provocation other than, hey, fuck you, guy. And that's, they'll take you down and break your clavicle and stomp you into the dirt. That's where we're at. So in that sense, it's not as funny. And I don't know.
It's an excellent point. It's not only is that true, but that's what happened here in New York a couple of days ago, where an ICE agent they've taken up positions in the hallways of the courts. So as folks who are immigrants are coming for their day in court and to talk to a judge and to see what they need to do to move things forward on what they're doing as far as trying to gain access to the country legally, they walk out after the court date is over, and they're jumped by ICE in the hallway as they're walking out. There's that case that you may have seen the video of where the ICE guys were trying to grab someone. They sort of half pinned him down to the ground, and the ICE guy dropped his gun. His pistol went out of his hand across the street, and he grabs it and starts pointing it at the people who are standing on the sidewalk witnessing the whole thing.
Right. Not threatening, other than witnessing.
Exactly. So now I guess it's illegal to, well, Trump's definition of illegal, to look at something that's happening. Um,
Yeah.
it's but you're right. I mean, there's a humorous aspect to it, but it's really serious, and it's such a violation of everything. You can't say anything, so the freedom of speech is out. You can't look now, or you'll be possibly shot in the face. It's beyond time. This is there's the it's a problem, and it's beyond time that there's something that we got to figure out what we need to do about it, because this is not going to simply go away.
Isn't it just a sign of the times, though, that everything in the news is both hilarious and terrifying? Our president's a buffoon, but when he makes mistakes, it's terrifying because it has cuts such a wide swath by design. There's no way to get away from it, and it's a great time to be alive, Matt.
Yeah, right. Well, there was a time when presidents didn't actually get involved with individuals. They didn't make their decisions based on who they didn't like. They didn't make their decisions on what company they want to try to take over. They don't try to shake down companies in lawsuits so that they get millions of dollars. These were things that didn't happen
Right.
up till now. And the most recent thing would be the government shutdown. This negotiating, which goes through time and again, it's not something new, but the way it was handled this time, once again, with here's Trump with the Project 2025 agenda, and trying to dismantle government.
Making good time too.
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
That is,
Right. And he's doing it so quickly.
please continue. Finish your thought. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No problem. So the Project 2025 was a plan that's been put together not by Trump, but over 30 years, by conservative think tanks and by the conservative wing of the uh, political spectrum. And I don't know that they ever really thought they could do it, but they were sort of always planning and sort of saying, what could we do? What is the pipe dream that we would love to see, of taking apart government brick by brick? And with the Trump in office, they've been able to actually pursue it, and they have that whole thing of firing government employees. They've brought that back as a threat because of the shutdown. They said, "Oh, okay, well, we're going to shut down the government, and because we are able to do it, it will allow us to fire, tens of thousands or 100,000s more of people who are on the government employment, or government employees, and we can do that as part of the shutdown. The government's down; we have to cut people, and they won't hire them back. The long-term damage, not even realizing it in the short term, but the long-term damage to what government is and how it works and the services it provides, is going to be devastating to the country. I mean, this is Trump's dismantling of not only what we know, but what actually works. If there's a thing that works, he wants to make certain it's stamped out of existence because it's not labeled a Trump company or a Trump product. And so then if somehow something survives, he'll then run around saying that he saved it, that it was his,
Right.
it's all because of me. That didn't get shut down because somebody stopped me from doing it. So therefore it was my saving them.
Exactly.
He does that with absolutely everything, where he winds up taking both sides of the issue in different speeches. So then no matter what actually happens, he can say, well, I'm victorious. I'm the ruler who makes things happen.
Yeah, I've watched him play that trick for about 10 years now, and it's just the gambit of a person who can't do any real good. He can't do any achieve any real achievements. So the only thing he can do is threaten a thing and then not destroy it and pat himself on the back for, preventing 7 wars. Sure. So
Yeah.
that's what I chalk that up to. It's an old gimmick. I don't know why people still fall for it. Why it still works for them, but that's part of the magic. That's showbiz, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's certainly something.
And with this government shutdown, this threat that they're going to fire employees, they have been hacking off entire limbs of the government for the last 8 months. Hot and heavy for the first like six. They were just like, "You there, get out," you know, uh, and shutting down USAID and I mean any number of acronyms, just whole swaths of people and departments gone like just lightning strikes. Now you're going to threaten that, oh, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to fire people. Well, I mean, okay. Um, it seems like a hollow threat to me. Not that he won't do it, but that he's going to do it anyway, has been doing it anyway. So it does take the sting out of that as a threat. I never understood how and why government workers don't get paid when the government shuts down. If you have to show up, then I'm sure they know when you were there. I don't understand how people don't get paid. Um, I don't know how that works. I guess I'm just not smart enough. But it is slightly comforting that ICE workers will be out there pummeling immigrants for free. So hopefully they don't make their car payments. That's the you got to take your satisfaction in these things where you can, Matt. So yeah, this government shutdown. How long do you think it's going to be? What's the over under, Matt?
Oh my goodness. I have no idea. I understand that there was an attempt by the Republican House to pass a stopgap that would allow things to start up again, but it was for something like 4 weeks or something like that. And it was the Democratic senators that said, if you're going to take away people's health care and you're going to take away benefits that the American people benefit from, then
Right.
we're not going to agree. So they stopped that one. So it could be this could be one of the longer ones. That means a couple of months,
Man,
which,
you
usually,
think it might go months, eh?
oh, yeah, yeah, I do. Some of these are resolved within weeks and then everything just jumps right back in. But, you know, the,
Is it because the stakes are so high? Because is it because you think that Democrats are more emboldened because of maybe the nature of the threat that we haven't faced before? What do you think? What do you chalk that up to?
well, I think that the Democrats actually do have some form of a leverage in this negotiation. And since Trump has been uh, so untractable in everything that he does with the Democrats, and how he has been so unable to do anything truly partisan. I think the Democrats are saying, okay, well, we're going to get the American people on our side with this. We're going to stick with holding off on this as long as we can, because we know that if the American people start getting a sense of where the problem's really coming from, maybe this is a way that will refocus folks so that they get the point that this is what's happening here. And the Republicans don't really want to resolve it either, I don't think, because they're back up to the whole, because of all the things that they're doing, gone back to firing people. And, this just gives them an excuse to do the things that they are part of their Project 2025.
Yeah.
So there's no, and until, I think it's until the people react that you're not going to see much resolved.
Interesting. Yeah, I just can't get over the fact that they're doing this anyway. They're running around with hacksaws, just cutting off everything they damn well please, and some stuff intentionally out of spite, and some thoughtless. I don't know. So I just can't get past the lack of the threat when they're going to do it anyway. But
Well,
I feel like,
and
mhm.
well, and they think so simplistically about it. the whole thing
It
of
seems so.
there's right. Oh, in the healthcare, there's a health sector. There's a project about transgenic mice. So it's misinterpreted as they're turning they're making the mice transgender
Right.
because the word trans is part of both words. They can't comprehend what the difference is. And so, oh, you see, this is a threat to the social order.
Well,
And
yeah.
this is their hot button. This is the way they're able to whip people up because they know they certainly can't win on the actual issues. So they need to turn to that sort of social culture war battles. And so then they apply it to anything, whether it's real or not. Those transgender, turning those mice transgender, that's a
Right.
horrible abomination against, against God or the gods or whoever it is. And
Yeah.
they are,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I was gonna say there's a very gauzy limit between when we stopped as a country, as a political ecosphere, when we stopped spinning and just started outright lying. That was the beginning of the fascism, because it always ends up with these people over here are taking food out of your mouth and money out of your pocket, and they're raping your women and all these terrible things. It always becomes that. It always anyway. And so I think if we want to get back to, if this country's ever going to get back together, we're going to have to work out some method of agreeing on the reality and truth again. Because right now that shit is bonkers, buck wild, long gone out the barn door, way out of control. And they just making up things that don't even, not even rooted in, good lies have a grain of truth in them. That's what makes them so easy to take. This is just wholesale, whole cloth, you know what I mean, storytelling. And it's not that they don't care if anybody checks, or excuse me, it's not that they're worried anybody's going to check. They don't care if anybody checks, because I don't know, have they anti-socialized research and fact-based? If you go and quote the Encyclopedia Britannica to some of these people, they shun you. They act like you're woke. Oh, you're woke, and that's it. And we're done talking. Um, yeah, we're gonna have to get all back on the same truth boat before this is over.
well,
I
I'm
mean,
afraid if that's the
check with
bar,
the soybean farmers. See if they're into truth. You can't gild that lily. You can't lie that well that these guys are going to get paid at the end of the season. That's a lie you can't back up.
right, right. Well, right. I mean, and at the same time, I think the issue is that, as you pointed out, the truth is not a requirement anymore for them. They want to believe what they're told because that allows for them to be on that side. And so how do you get from there back to things that we can all agree on, or facts that we can all agree on based on evidence, or something like crazy as evidence? But how do you get back to that? And that's a hard one. I don't know how that could be done or how that
Well,
would work.
my thought is kind of tracing it back to its root. The whole reason they have to lie about what's happening and what it means is because they've lost their way politically. They don't have new ideas. They don't have good ideas that people care about. They lose on the actual policy. I think they lose all the time. Every time they get power, they just utterly just f things up, to the maximum, and then they leave it in a smoldering heap for the next Democrat to come clean up. I mean, Biden inherited COVID, and Obama inherited Bush's plummeting, economy, the 2008 crash. Um, anyway,
Clinton
elementary.
inherited Clinton inherited an incredibly large deficit and decided to attack it, and he
Yeah,
did.
and
So
it
he
did.
lowered it. But
Anyway,
yeah,
so I guess to finish off my point, I got a little lost there in the weeds, but the fact is they lost their way politically. They don't have any good ideas, and so they can't tell the truth. For God's sake, why would you do that? There's nothing good down that road. All they want to do is outlaw, gays and all these terrible things, and to the massive people generally, it is unpopular. And the world is moving in a different direction, or at least I thought it was, or at least it was trying to. But I think that's why they find themselves so far out in the weeds that they have to lie, because their message isn't popular and they can't figure out how. They had a chance to. They've had a couple of chances to turn around, go back to the woodshed, retool things, and come back better than ever. Instead, they got uh, bought out at bargain basement prices by Donald Trump's bullshit machine, and so this is all they have left. So I think to get back out of that, you just have to let the snake catch its tail and start eating until it figures it out. Like I said, the soybean farmers, they're getting the raw truth of it. They've figured out exactly what these policies will get you. A lot of other people are farther removed, but and they can pretend that, oh yeah, gas isn't more than it used to be, or groceries aren't more than they used to be. Everything's fine. All the while, the water is just rising, slowly, and they're starting to pay their mortgage with their credit card, and can't afford tires, and you just have to let them. But by then, the entire country is going to be in a ditch. Who knows what they're going to wreck next? They can, will, and do irreparable harm, and we can't just sit by and watch and wait for some people for the flames to finally lick at their toes so that they can appreciate it. I don't know how much we have that kind of time.
Right. And I do agree with that point, because you mentioned the farmers. The farmers absolutely are screwed. The soy folks who are selling to China and India and all these other locations, and all of those deals are going to stop, or they're going to become too expensive due to the tariff stuff. And so a lot of farmers are going to feel a lot of pain when the season's over.
He had to. I'll remind you, he had to subsidize them in his first term, and it seemed to work well for him. I didn't see any farmers jumping ship or complaining about it. But I was thinking to myself, okay, that's fine. They're getting paid, but you'd rather have customers out in the world than you would a big daddy in the government, because once your customers go elsewhere, then all you've got's big daddy's money. What happens when big daddy stops paying you, or can't pay you, or pays somebody else, or something like that, and you want to go back to those customers, like they might want to go back to China as a market? Not anymore, bub. They've gone.
Well, we'll see. Yeah, I mean, we'll see what actually happens. But here's the thing. I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. He did do subsidies for farmers. He's going to do that again. When he's not doing it, he'll say that it's, whatever bad term he can think of, because he works on bad and good, right? Oh, it is a bad thing. It is communism. It is,
It's the
whatever he
enemy.
wants to say. And then when he does it, he says, "Oh, I'm sending you a check. You're getting
Right.
something with my signature on it. You should be happy." That kind of thing. And that's the way he is able to. But they accept it. The farmers voted for Trump. I think as a whole, that you go back and look at the results, they voted for the guy. I mean, a lot of these folks who are being there's a percentage of folks being grabbed by ICE, all of who their families voted for Trump, and they're terribly surprised by
Yeah.
what's happening. But
I feel like they heard what they wanted to hear.
Exactly. Will they actually change what they do? Will they actually change their vote this time around? A shocking thing that I saw was, if you remember the gun violence in Uvalde, where a guy walked into a school and started shooting kids, and the police came and set up in the hallways, but were too scared to, or at least the person leading the police was too scared to give the command to go in, and sat in the hallway and listened to kids getting shot, getting killed.
Yeah.
After that incident, the first election cycle after that event, the Republicans won straight ticket. the people in Uvalde voted for Republicans on the federal, the state, the local level, if you can imagine. That you'd think that maybe there'd be some sort of determination to change things and see what could be done to resolve to make things better. But didn't happen. They all voted straight Republican again. And so,
I can't wrap my mind around that. Why do you think they did that?
man, if I could tell you that,
You don't have a theory? Okay. I thought maybe you usually got a theory. So I wanted to check, make sure I wasn't missing something.
yeah, I mean, the only theory I can think of is that they are just so, you might say brainwashed, you might say focused. I don't know what word you want to use there,
Maybe it's
but they're
just Texas.
so.
Maybe that's Republicans is pretty much all you have in a red area. I don't know.
It must have been. I mean, I believe that even one of the parents of one of the children was running as a candidate. So you can't say it was that they didn't have choice. That they didn't have a choice. But it's so, that whole thing that you were talking about, sort of that mindset, is so intractable. There's just there's no getting around it or breaking it. I guess. See, that's where I'm stuck on your theory for people changing. I mean, I would hope they would, sure, but what will it take to actually bring us back to that changing that mindset from the social culture wars, which is the reason they do it, as you pointed out, is because they can't win on the issues, and they certainly can't win on policy. So that idea of figuring out the thing that helps to divide people to get them into power, they're not going to help to change that.
I guess to me there's a parallel where I keep going back to the soybean farmers, but it's such an easy, they're suffering from the policy and they can't ignore it. It's not something like transgenders where they don't know anybody like that, or gays where they don't know anybody who admits to being gay in their life, and so they think they can just have their opinions and never have to square them with reality. This just like the soybean farmer and the lack of a buyer. Um, Republicans seem to change when it matters to them. If their kid comes out and says, I'm transgender, well, do you still want to hit him with your truck? Or do you still love your kid and realize that, well, maybe if they're gay or they're transgender or non-binary or different, or, like to listen to Bad Bunny or whoever, then they have to reconcile with reality. And that's not just something theoretical you bitch about down at the bar or over tea with your friends. It becomes practical, and you have to say, okay, well, I still hate my child, or they're just not right. Or you have to knuckle under and stop being such a pain in the ass about theoretical things. And like I say, once it becomes real, so that's why I say the consequences are going to have to land and make it real for these people who think that it's just really cool to, shoot fishing boats out of the water, or just whatever nightmare number 973. Pick one at random. Anyway, and so people have to they have to reconcile these things, but nobody has to reconcile it when it's all theoretical, when it's all just social media and posturing among your friends, and when it's not real. But when it becomes real and you meet your uncle at Thanksgiving and he demands, that you're either cool with him or you're not, and you have to make some adjustments or not. And a lot of people, they finally see the light when it becomes practical and real for them, and they have to deal with it. So I'm hoping that I don't know what else could possibly work.
Well, then the question becomes, first, actually, my initial reaction was to say, you're saying it is real. And that brings us back to the original issue that we started the show with. You're always trying to blame the Jews. I hear you. But the thing that I'm thinking of is how do we show that, and that how do we where's the proof in that theory, which would be the only time people have a opportunity to hold elected officials accountable is an election.
Right.
So that means that 2026 will be the proof of the pudding. If there's enough pain that's caused prior to that point, or if the pain is delayed past that, then what do you do then? I guess look at 2028. But the proof comes every 2 years or every 4 years when there's an election for the federal level positions. So there's the way to check in on what you're thinking, Tom, or what the theory that you have on this. The first time that we'll be able to check on that is in about a year, in November of 2026.
There's that. And that sounds so damned far away. Who knows what the landscape is going to be like by then. In political time, that's a decade. You know what I mean? 13 months from now or whatever it is. And so, yeah, who knows what foul chicanery will have been dreamt of. And about 60% of this bullshit goes through. So that's not encouraging. Whatever between now and then, that's a lot of bullshit that can be wrought. So I tend to despair a little bit for 2026, and not only because of the chicanery of those who would do evil, but by the floppiness of those who are supposed to fucking protect us, excuse me, against it. Those who are supposed to be in our corner, those who are servants of the people. And by and large, I think the people are pretty dissatisfied with what is supposed to be our esteemed counterattack politically. And so I worry for on both fronts, both that there will be things attempted and that they will be poorly defended. I see precious few showing the imagination and the spirit and the mettle to embrace this fight, and it's all the marbles. You know what I mean? So, and on the other hand, there are indicators that we don't have to wait 13 months for. There are special elections going on all the time. I'm sure you know better than I do, that are always showing which way the wind is blowing. There's little political windsocks guiding the way. And it seems like Dems are overperforming even when there's nonsense afoot. And that is encouraging. I think enough people are seeing that this here is some bullshit. And I think they'll remember well enough when it comes time to vote. I don't think they'll sit on their hands, as some of us, many of us, all of us at one point or another have been known to do. But hopefully there's nothing else we can do except to get the citizens to act like citizens again. And for them / us, again, it becomes practical. I've sat out a few votes that I shouldn't have. I've been too lazy to look up issues or get involved. And this is what it wreaks. It wreaks havoc. It wreaks rot. It wreaks corruption. And so me, just like the hypocritical Republican that I love to revile, I will change my tune when it matters to me practically, when the rubber meets my road, or vice versa, or both, or which way you have it. You know what I mean? When it becomes practical to me, I will adjust my thinking. And here we are in the damn ditch. So I think it's time to adjust our thinking, get more civic minded, get more involved, understand what's going on instead of just believing whatever comes across the airwaves on a TV channel that makes you feel better. No, you should demand better than that, and we should. And until we do, this is what we get.
Fair point. Fair point. So it sounds like what you are saying is that you are planning to vote in 2026.
Oh, I plan to vote and care and protest and get involved to some degree. Absolutely.
And you're going to get out to vote for Prop 50 out there in California?
If I was in California, I absolutely would. I think, yeah, I think it comes much like this shutdown. Democrats have got to start painting outside the lines, coloring outside the lines, thinking outside the box, whatever euphemism you like. They have to start getting excited, energized, and doing things, shaking things up. We've been incredibly stodgy in the face of just how many months, Matt? How many months upon months of just diabolical, terror and fear for the fate of this country? Have we just sat around and waited, hoped the wind would blow in a different direction? We're way behind the curve, in my opinion. We should have had this Gavin Newsom Twitter shit. We should have been doing, I think I may have said this before, we should have been doing that 2 weeks after Trump started blowing his horn the way he does. All his arm waving and headline grabbing. We should have been onto that. We should have, about 10 days. I give him 10 days of grace period. We should have had to be really stunned and like, hey, what's this guy's doing? And hi there.
And yet we didn't. So it has gone on for a little bit anyway.
And excuse me, had a technical difficulty. Anyway, and so sorry, Matt. You know what? Let me pause for your views.
It's a visual medium, Tom. So I would say that, first of all, yes, you're right. Everybody should have expected that he would do his worst. Everyone should have been ready for it and had something to, had a plan in place. But they didn't. And they just said, well, he won, so he's going to get to do the stuff that he wants to do. That's what's scary about this recent meeting of the generals that Pete Hegseth put together and had his little event where he brought in a couple of hundred generals and admirals from all over the world and brought them together so that he could give a lecture on the warrior ethos. So I guess that's something that he knows something about, I guess. He has an idea of what one is anyway. He may not know what it really is, but he has an theory. And he provided it to these generals. And even had Trump come out, after complaining about people not being physically fit enough and needing physical training daily, if not twice daily. He then brought out Donald Trump to lumber onto the stage in his, what is he supposed to be, 5'12" and 120 pounds or something? I don't know what it was, but he came out with his warrior physique and also gave some words of wisdom to the generals. Now, you see videos of it, and the generals are not applauding. They're not acting like a MAGA rally. And I think that was certainly upsetting to both Pete and Donald.
And hugely gratifying to me. These things come up. I'm sorry to interrupt, but these things have been threatened before. And you never know what's going to happen, or, these catastrophic things where thousands of people are laid off, for example, they come to fruition and they happen. And then in the dust up, we had a good week that we knew this was going to happen. Why get generals all together in one room? You know what I mean? What could they possibly be plotting? And then it turned out to be a QVC infomercial for, some cheap disguise of manhood and warrior ethos by a guy who can't do a pull-up. And I'm just, for as evil as I was worried this would be, I'm thrilled and relieved that it was as inept and pathetic as it was. 10 out of 10, no notes. Thank you. Do it again.
Right.
It was like his military parade.
Right.
Thought it was going to be something, terrible, and it was, but in a good way.
Right. In the way you want terrible to be for that scenario in America. Yeah, I do have a little bit of a doubt in my mind, and that is, you bring 800 generals together, you can't expect them to act like a MAGA crowd because they think of themselves as generals and they think of themselves as having a certain position and status, and they're not going to go wildly applauding, Yet, my concern is that when the military gets involved, they will. It is not uncommon for them to initially say, and particularly tell the press, that they do not have any interest in pursuing the silliness, or they won't follow illegal orders, or they come out and say this is not something that we're going to be swayed by. And yet 3 to 5 days later, without a press release, they can start doing things that they think will make the boss happy because the guy's still their boss. So what is it that
Yep.
we will see? And that's what that I if nothing happens, then that will be great. Will something happen? And that's what we've got to that we don't have any control over. We'll see what actually does happen or what comes from it. But these guys allegedly were, vetted and even given certain talking points or hats or whatever it was they were given before they attended, and they were vetted to be to Pete Hegseth's liking. So what does that mean?
That means
In
that
other
I'm
words,
back.
I hope it's as silly as you say, as you presented it. I certainly hope that that's the end of it, which can also happen. Usually, if Trump or his people do something that falls flat on its face, and they see that it falls flat on its face in public, they'll at least temporarily stop doing it. They'll come up with some excuse for having done it, and then they hold back for. Sometimes they'll just stop it. Sometimes they'll just hold back and try again in 6 months later to see what kind of response it gets. Then, so as you say, we got a little bit of time in front of us, and they're gonna make use of that time. Let's hope as ineptly as they handled this rally.
Yeah, indeed. The courts, the courts are promising, except for that one court at the top that gets to tell all the other courts what courts can do and can't do. So yeah, it's a tumble dry of possibilities.
Right,
Not
right,
not
and
all of them good.
too true. And we don't know until after. It was McConnell's plans to usurp the Supreme Court worked out. I mean, he won in that respect. So now we've got to deal with this court for 20, 30, 40 years. Maybe 40 is oversaying it, but 20 years anyway. 20,
Yeah,
30
for
years.
sure, for a good long time.
So, yeah. And then when Trump got in and wound up naming 2 or 3 extra Supreme Court justices, horrible. But puts us
Yeah,
in.
and I hold Obama responsible for that personally. When they took that Merrick Garland, the Senate wouldn't do the advise and consent thing that they're bound to do, and he just whistled past it. I would have been throwing some flags on plays. I like to think he's the big constitutional scholar. He couldn't think of a way to, stand on his 2 feet and demand more. I can't believe there was no way out of that. That we just cough up a Supreme Court seat and keep moving. But it's what we did.
Well, and McConnell, McConnell had gamed that out as well. So it wasn't just. You're making a valid point, I think, absolutely true.
I hear you.
But it wasn't Obama simply not doing something, as opposed to he did not do that. That is true. But he also had somebody who was determined on blockading whatever he did do,
Mhm.
and who had planned, as I said, for a long time he figured out how he wanted to pervert the court, and he did.
I hear that.
Well, let's see what else is going on here. Is there anything that is particularly of an issue that you wanted to bring up? Any kind of moronic sort of thing?
Nothing new from me tonight on that front. Just sticking to the current events tonight.
Okay. What I can do is I can take a minute or two, if it's okay,
Absolutely.
and talk about. You mentioned earlier about the elections, that there's always an election happening somewhere in America. That's
All right.
our friends at Election Central like to say that. Election Central, in combination with PolitiPod, let you know when elections are coming up. So, as we discussed, there's actually local elections happening constantly all over the country and happening every week. So, somewhere, somebody's getting a chance to vote, and they need to, well, as you suggested earlier, they need to pick up on that opportunity. And some things that are coming up in October 7th. Let's see. So next week on October 7th, we'll have Juneau, Alaska, having its general municipal elections. So local elections. I believe there are two particular spots that are contested. There's a District 2 and a Board of Education positions that are contested elections, and then two others that are not, and a couple of ballot questions as well. So they have one ballot question where they're talking about reducing taxes on essential products, and then there's another ballot question that puts together a seasonal tax that is only in part of the year. You know, the in Alaska, there's the fishing industry. There's a part of the year that's the season to go catching fish. There's a part of the year that's not the time to go out and go fish. So they put together a proposal that would increase the tax during the season and then would reduce the tax when they're out of season. And that's going to help with modifying the reduction in the other tax as well. So they're trying to make up for the one tax reduction by having another issue that raises a tax. So I guess it's more about what specific goods are being addressed. So that's happening up in Juneau. If you're a Juneau voter, your day to vote is October 7th. Make certain you get out and vote. There's a couple of things happening down south in Alabama. There's Birmingham and also the Birmingham City School District. The city election is actually a runoff, where they're having a runoff general election. I guess I should mention the terms that I'm saying to be as clear as possible. There's primary elections where each of the parties pick who they want to run in the general election. There's general elections where the parties run against each other to elect somebody for an elected seat. Some places have multiple candidates in an election. In the general election, they allow multiple candidates and then have another election, a runoff election, where the top two people from the first general election go head to head if no one gets over 50% of the vote. Different places do it differently, but there's some of the things that exist, and there's also special elections. If someone resigns or dies, or if there's a particular reason, then there's a special election held to fill the seat. So those are sort of the four general categories, or the four election categories that I'm talking about. So Birmingham, Alabama on October 7th has a general runoff election. And at the same time, the school board's taking advantage of there being an election and having its own general runoff election. I believe I mentioned last week that Iowa has local elections, and they split them up. There was one day that they already went and had some of the local places went with their elections, and now there's the other folks who didn't have their local general elections that they're having them in Iowa on October 7th. So check your local listings on your local election, and then remember to get registered and go vote. Also, I'll mention the special primary for Tennessee's 7th Congressional You mentioned the special elections for congressional candidates. Well, there's one of those coming up. That's happening in Tennessee on October 7th. And another state with some local elections coming up, that would be Texas. So big old state, and a lot of places having local elections in Texas on October 11th. So Texas voters, get to those polls. And I'll mention one other for right now, and that's in Oklahoma. Oklahoma City has a special election set for October 14th. So there's an opportunity for some folks down in Oklahoma City to make their voice heard and get out and vote. Thanks for listening. That's Election Central.
All right. Thanks, Matt. So on to the next, I suppose. What do you think about YouTube's settlement out of court?
Yeah, that was Trump extorting some money again. So another couple of $1 million that he's been able to shake loose from a company, and through settlement not have actually anything happen to the company, but they're making certain that there's a bunch of money for a settlement. And of course, I think that's disgusting. I think that each time he does it, he's doing it for his own personal gain. This is not a president looking to rule the country. This is not somebody who's governing the country. It's somebody who's seeing an opportunity and shaking down companies as part of that proud tradition that he started. And this is another one of those. And also, I mean, there's some lesser incidents as well. There's this guy who runs Live Nation. If you know Live Nation, they're one of the ticketing companies, the companies that make tickets available for events.
Right.
They run the event, they set the ticket price, etc. And apparently the CEO of the company, I don't know his name off the top of my head, but the CEO of Live Nation recently said, people pay tens of thousands of dollars for season tickets for basketball teams, but they get angry when I try to charge $800 for a Beyonce concert. And think back just a couple of decades ago, there was on MTV. Once upon a time, there was a thing called MTV. It was about music videos. If you can remember that far back, before they went into programming and putting on shows instead of music videos. And they did an interview with Kurt Cobain. And they mentioned the price that Madonna was charging for her tickets. And it was like
$35.
35. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. 35, something like $35. And Kurt Cobain's face absolutely registered shock. He just absolutely, he was like, we were debating whether or not to charge $20.
Right.
It is like,
Right.
Who would have thought to charge 40 or 50 or 35 or 40? Who gets away with that? And now this guy is talking about how he should be charging $800 for tickets. And where's the response? What can we do to Live Nation to rattle their tree?
It's a good question. Even if scalpers weren't a part of it, what can you do? I mean, it's heartening that just recently we've had the ability to make Disney and ABC pay a price for selling out Jimmy Kimmel. That was encouraging. So can we turn that around and use it against someone else? I mean, with politicians, like you say, we do it on election day. How do you purple nurple Live Nation? I don't know. The answers have got to be out there. I mean, it's got to start with not buying tickets, I guess. But I don't know where it goes from there. And I don't know how you achieve that.
I think you make an excellent point. Absolutely true. And the Kimmel model, I guess we should call it, is actually spot on. You can't change politicians till election, but you can register your discontent, because that is actually a thing, and that's important. And people see that and they react to it. So if you want the powers that be to get a message, work to change them as best you can when you can, but don't hesitate to make your feelings known and to do something that also involves larger groups of people doing the same. Because I believe that what was mentioned in our first episode as well was economics can make the point much better than sometimes we can just do so with speaking.
Yeah, it's just like politics, though. You have to organize, or you don't make a dent.
Too true. Organizing is where it's at.
Well, if you don't have money, you've got to do something. And neither one of us can fund a campaign yet. So until then,
That is very true.
I'll tell you, there's another disturbing pattern. Now that we're talking about this, I'm just seeing patterns like Rain Man. But in the first Trump term, I feel like the media was tougher. And then they completely folded in the second term. Washington Post was doing proud work. I was thrilled to be a subscriber of the Washington Post. They're counting all his lies and keeping a day-by-day tally. That's fantastic. And they're covering him like a cheap suit. They're just all over him. Fantastic. Everybody, they're criticizing him right where he needs to be criticized, how he needs. And now, same guy owned it, right? Bezos still owned it. This time around, he decides he's not gonna endorse Kamala Harris. Okay, fine. Okay. I guess we'll just endorse this steaming pile of shit instead. And then he also throws down the edict that we're not going to do this kind of coverage. We're going to cover like personal liberties and stuff. Goes kind of quasi-libertarian in his edict. I mean, why this time around? There were mergers in the last Trump administration that everybody had to sweat. Is it because he's hired there are no, I mean, listen, there weren't a lot of adults in the room the first time around, but you had a few apparently for all the good they did. But this time around, it's complete sycophant clown show. Nobody's qualified to be in their position. They're there only because he put them there, and that keeps them nice and loyal, I guess. Which I hope it keeps them loyal enough to go to jail, because some of them will. Unless all goes really into the tank. But I don't understand why in the second term that the media crumbled the way they did, and that I mean, who else hasn't fared well? Republicans have been terrible from the get. They raced to the bottom. They're equally as bad now as then. They just have more fortuitous circumstances to let their mold really grow deep roots. And so I don't know. I don't understand. I thought I had another pillar of the community that I can't exactly cite right now that is just dog shit in the second coming of Trump, where it was so, I thought, fairly stellar in the first term. I can't explain it. Can you?
Well, I can try. I honestly, I see. So yeah. Well, but I see you make an excellent point. At the same time, I think the media overall in his first term had no idea what was happening. He was hitting them
Agreed.
from an angle that they hadn't been hit on before. They were used to, whether you agree or disagree, you're going to keep your access by, the media would keep its access by sometimes not asking the hard questions and sometimes letting things go. And yet he was hitting them broadside, full, you're the enemy of the state and you're this thing that is evil and must be defeated no matter what they did. So they were kind of trying to bend over to sort of, bend backwards to accommodate things.
I'll stop you when you're wrong.
and they were trying to accommodate to allow for that allow access type of thinking.
True that.
And
I guess I don't remember they never fired anybody off the air for him that I recall.
oh
They certainly didn't knuckle under the tunes of millions of dollars in completely winnable lawsuits to facilitate basically a very complex bribe. So
true.
you're
So
right. They weren't princes before, though. You're right. They carried a lot of water for him. He brought them a lot of viewers and hits and things like that. And eventually, right around January 6th, they got the message that, hey, this guy may not be so good for the country. But it was way too late. We're all late on these things.
yeah, I so you're absolutely right about the money stuff, the settlements, that sort of craziness only happens now. But I also think that they missed the point the first time around. And if there was more of a reaction in the opposite direction the first time, would that has how would the second term have played out? Would it have played out if there was more of a recognizing the situation and responding to it, countering it, as opposed to trying to figure a way to work with it, which is what they functionally did. This time, yeah, you're absolutely. I got no idea who these people are who are making these settlements, tens of millions of dollars, with the idea of, oh, this will, do they think they're placating him, or do they think that somehow this means he won't double back and come back again, that he won't find something else to sue them over? Pretty ridiculous. And
Yeah,
of course,
I think these are pencil necks at county jail. They never encountered something like this, and they think if you just give him your lunch money, then he'll be happy because he has your lunch money and everything will be fine. And it's like, hey, I want more lunch money. I think eventually they're going to learn, but maybe they won't. I don't know. I don't think they expected that it would pay him off and it would just make him more uh, aggressive rather than less. But that's until you don't know until you know, and now they know.
right, and now we'll see what it's when they start getting hit again for another settlement. Let's see what they do that time, if they actually get the point that somebody needs to, or if they're so scared and so malleable that they'll just give it to him again. They'll just give him more.
Yep.
That ballroom's not going to build itself, pal. So
So please.
why don't we do our check-in on the Epstein list, and we'll wrap up here with our count up of the unredacted Epstein list. You may recall we keep track of that here on PolitiPod Live, and days since the unredacted Epstein list has not been released, we are at day 3,760 and counting up. I did say it's a count up, not a countdown, because we have no idea when it will end. So for all of you not keeping track, here's the numbers. All right. I think that brings our second episode to its end. We certainly would like to thank you for tuning in to watch us here on PolitiPod Live, where we get a chance to talk politics.
Absolutely. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. It's been a thrill and a pleasure to talk through the day's events and the week's events with you, Matt. And I look forward to doing it again next week at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday night.
Yep. PolitiPod Live's on Wednesday night. And also there's the podcast PolitiPod that is on soundcloud.com/PolitiPod. And that's also out on a monthly basis. You can always check that out. That's the political humor podcast where we try to make fun of stuff with sketches and one-liners. And the election central reports are also there for you to keep involved and to know when when elections are coming up. And then, as both Tom and I have said, we welcome you here at Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, for PolitiPod Live.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Good night.